Jaja Binks, Jaja Binks. Me say your humble servant, Jaja Binks, Jaja Binks. Oh, muy, I love you, Jaja Binks. Me say go Jaja Binks.
Hello everybody, some would say I'm the reverse, and welcome to the 5th installment in my Flash rewatch / re-ranking series, where we go back and rewatch the entire show and rank every single episode from the worst to the best on a tier list. So today we're going to be doing Season 5, all 22 episodes, and overall I found this season to be a lot weaker than I remembered. This is probably my least favorite season so far. I did not like Season 4 when I watched it, but at least Season 4 had some high highs. This season overall is just a lot of very dull, boring episodes, and it's the same thing over and over again with the villain just escaping every episode, and I just did not enjoy it as much as I expected to. Anyways, without further ado, let's start with episode 1, the premiere episode, which is called Nora. So of course this episode introduces Nora after the cliffhanger from the last season, and I thought that she was a decent character in this episode. Gridlock as a villain was fine, I guess. He's nothing special. I did like this episode for one main reason, and that is that this episode tonally just feels like a season 1 episode, in terms of, the tone and just the feel and the energy of it all. It was a lot of fun. I don't like Barry's new suit. I think it looks really bad. I don't like Gridlock. But overall, I think this episode had some fun stuff with Nora trying to get back to the future, and overall I thought it was a pretty solid premiere. It's not my favorite premiere. I still do prefer the Season 4 premiere, and I still probably prefer the Season 1 premiere, that being the pilot episode, but Nora is good enough to get into the B tier. Now, where in the B tier? I think it's fairly high. It's better than Shade. Yeah, I'm going to put it above Lose Yourself, but I'm not going to put it above Pilot. I think these two are very similar episodes in terms of quality, but I do prefer Pilot. Whether that's because of nostalgia or what, I don't know, but anyways, let's move on to Season 5 Episode 2, which is called Blocked. This episode was definitely weaker than the first one. Block as a villain was not very good. I don't like the actress, or I don't like the character. Whether that's the acting or the writing, I don't really know, and I don't really care. It's just, I don't really like the villain of Block very much. The only thing that keeps this episode from being like the worst of the worst is the ending. Cicada shows up in this episode, and he's actually pretty intimidating. When he beats the crap out of Team Flash, and I thought it was decent. So that's the only thing that keeps this from being a horrible episode. But anyways, it is still a D tier. I'm going to put it above Magenta, but below The Flash is Born. Obviously, I think Girder is a better villain than Block. And I do think the Cicada stuff is enough to put this over Magenta and all the other episodes. So yeah. Next is Season 5, Episode 3, titled The Death of Vibe. This episode was pretty good. We have Barry and Nora looking for Cicada. They're going after David Hirsch, who is the original Cicada. And then at the end of the episode, there's a showdown between them and Cicada, and Vibe almost dies. Now, I didn't like the fake-out death of Vibe almost dying, and then it turns out he breached away at the last moment. I thought that was really cheap and just out of nowhere. But overall, this episode did have some decent action, and there wasn't any cringy meta of the week this time around. So I'm going to give this episode a B tier. I don't know where to put it, though. I'm going to put it above... Where did I drop it? I dropped it right here. I am going to put it below Family of Rogues, but above Crisis on Earth X Part 3. I think this episode has got some good stuff. It's a little bit overrated. I think the end of the episode is good, but other than that, it's a fine episode. It's nothing special. So, yeah. Next is season 5, episode 4, titled News Flash. We have Spencer Young is the villain this time around. She's not great. I don't like the meta tech that they introduced in this episode with the phone. I think it's a really dumb idea. So, yeah, this episode is probably one of the weaker episodes this season. I do like Nora kind of getting hypnotized and fighting Barry on the stadium. That was a cool scene. But other than that, this episode is just kind of a waste. The villain is dumb, and her abilities are dumb. The only thing that's kind of worth it is the development of the Nora and Iris plotline, learning what Iris did to Nora in the future and why Nora is mad at Iris. But other than that, this episode is very weak. So I'm going to put it in the D tier below what is it called? Back to Normal. So, yeah. Yeah, that's all I have to say. It's really uneventful episode. Anyways, next we have season 2, episode 5, titled All Dolled Up. And this episode is actually quite overhated. I actually did really like this episode, mainly for one reason and one reason only, and that is Ragdoll. Ragdoll's an awesome villain in my opinion. He's so creepy and he's so well done. I really like the costume, the music, the acting. Everything is just really on point for him. He's such an interesting antagonist. The reason that people usually rank this episode so low is because there's a moment at the end of this episode where Ragdoll pushes Barry off of a building, and he's got the metacuffs on, and Iris jumps off a building and unlocks the metacuffs with a key, and then Barry can save her, which is a dumb moment for sure, but I don't know. I just don't think it's enough to justify ranking this episode as low as some people rank it. So I'm gonna give this episode a B tier. I don't think it's that bad, and I think Ragdoll is just an interesting enough villain to justify putting it this high. I think this episode's better than Death of Vibe, better than Family of Rogues, but not as good as Flashpoint. Flashpoint, of course, has got all the fun little, oh, let's see what this new version of Cisco's up to, and let's see what this new version of Wally's up to. Whereas this episode's just, your villain of the week. But Ragdoll, like I said, is just such an awesome villain that I gotta put in the B tier. Next is Season 5, Episode 6, titled The Icicle Cometh. This is the first of 2 Icicle episodes. I think this episode is the better of the 2. Mainly because it has the whole, is this Caitlyn's father? Is this Thomas Snow? Or is this Icicle just pretending to be Thomas? It's got that whole aspect to it, and we'll get to the other episode later on, but this episode was fine. I think the whole Caitlyn, Thomas Snow, Icicle plotline it could have been a lot better, so this episode's not the greatest. I can't really remember what's going on in this episode besides the Icicle stuff, so I'm going to put this episode in the C tier. Where though? I'm gonna put it above Untouchable. There is that extra kind of, Thomas is Caitlyn's father, so there is that personal connection. Even though it's not done too well, it is there, and I think it is better than Untouchable, which Clive Yorkin, and it's a good Wally episode. But other than that, I think Icicle Cometh is a better episode. Season 5, Episode 7, this is O Come All Ye Thankful. This episode has Weather Witch, who's not a good villain. She sucks, but yeah, we have Barry basically dying and Nora having to deal with that, which was a decent storyline. The thing that kind of boosts this episode up is that we learn Cicada and Grace's origin. We get flashbacks to them, and I think Chris Klein does a great job as Orland Dwyer, not the evil cicada. He sucks, but as just good old Orland Dwyer, Grace's uncle, he does a pretty decent job. So this episode, just because of that, is boosted a little bit. So I'm gonna put this episode. Where should I put this? I think it's still a D tier, but it's decent. I'm gonna put it under Flash is Born, just because I think Girder is a much better villain than Weather Witch. So, yeah. Next is Season 5, Episode 8, titled What's Past is Prologue. This is the mid-season finale, and this is one of the best episodes of the series. We have a time travel episode here, and they go back to, I'm trying to think, 4 different time periods, and they're all great. They go back to Season 3 to get Piece of Savitar's outfit, which is great. It was a lot of fun. And then they go back to Season 2, and we get Zoom. And the way they do that, Zoom is really creepy. Just they show up, and it's nighttime, and they're in this alleyway, and then Zoom races by, and it's really creepy. And they get Teddy Sears back to reprise the role. That was great. And then they go back to episode 11 of season 1, which again in season 2 was when Barry went back in time before in flashback, which was, that episode was great by itself, going back in time to a previous episode in the series. But now we are going back to an episode that Barry already went back to. So there's 3 versions of Barry there. I just loved that dynamic. And Tom Cavanaugh playing Thawne again was just so great. There's not much else I can say. This episode's just so great. They go back to the particle accelerator, and we see a montage of Barry becoming the Flash, Thinker becoming Thinker, all of these different things. It's just so great. So I'm going to put this episode in the S tier. Below Enter Flash Time. I think that episode's got better acting and everything. But above Enter Zoom, this episode's just... it's so fun. Sorry about the yawning. I'm just so tired. Next, we have Season 5, Episode 9, titled Elseworlds Part 1. This is, of course, our crossover episode. I'm not a huge Elseworlds fan. I think it's fun with Barry and Oliver switching bodies, but other than that, it's nothing special. It's fun seeing Barry and Oliver and Kara and Clark and Amazo and all that. That was great, but other than that, it's nothing special. So, yeah. I don't know, I'm just not a huge crossover fan, and I'm not a huge Elseworlds fan, but yeah. I do think it is good enough to be in the A tier. Probably like low A tier though. Yeah. It's a good crossover episode, but again, I'm just not a fan of crossovers, to be honest. Yeah. So far, other than Elseworlds, the highest crossover episode was Flash vs. Arrow, which is right here, so yeah. Anyways, what do we got next? We have Season 5, Episode 10, titled The Flash and the Furious. I think this episode is the weakest of the season. I think Silver Ghost and Weather Witch, they're both really bad villains, and as a duo, they're just not good. That's all I gotta say, really. I guess after learning that Nora is working for Thawne in the episode 8, we get some of Barry and Nora and Thawne stuff in this, but other than that, this episode's just really uneventful and really boring, and the villains are cringe and not great. So I'm gonna put this episode in the D tier, below Honey I Shrunk Teen Flash. At least that episode has some fun stuff with Ralph and Cisco being small. And it's got the stuff with Big Sur when Barry's in prison. This episode is just really boring and kind of sucks. So, yeah. Next, we have Season 5, Episode 11. We have Seeing Red. This episode, Cicada continues his killing spree against metahumans. He injures Nora, breaks her back. And this episode's all about saving the metas, getting them in a secure location, getting them away from Cicada. And, of course, Barry goes full aggro. He attacks Cicada. He almost kills him. And of course he's stopped because killing's not right, and Flash has got to be a hero, and then Cicada flies away again. Not a good episode. I'm gonna put it in the D tier. Below Magenta, I just think this episode's not very good. So yeah, I don't know. It's just really uneventful, and I just hate the metahuman storyline with Norvok taking center stage. He's not a good character, so Cicada's not good, and Barry's not good even. So yeah, not a good episode. Next, we have Season 5, Episode 12, titled Memorabilia. This episode is a lot worse than I remembered. Nora going into Grace's memory, Barry and Iris going into Nora's memory. Some good stuff with them fighting Reverse Flash. That was cool, but the acting is so bad. The acting and the writing in this episode is so bad, with Jessica Parker Kennedy just not being good in the role of Nora. The kid, Grace Gibbons, is bad, but she's a child actress, so at least you can, kind of understand. But Nora is just so bad in this episode, so I don't know. I just can't rank this any higher. I'm going to put it above, where's Duet? I think this episode's very similar to Duet, where it's just very cringy, and yeah. But at least this episode kind of is trying to take itself seriously, but again, still super cringy. Cool idea, execution, not so much. Next, we have Season 5, Episode 13, titled Goldfaced. This one is fine. Barry and Ralph go undercover in Goldface's criminal operation. I mean, there's no Flash, there's no elongated man, it's just Barry and Ralph, so that's boring. And then we have Iris breaking into Orland Dwyer's house, and her managing to escape him by stabbing him with a kitchen knife. It's cringe. It's not good. This episode is not good. So I'm gonna put it in the C tier. I think it's worse than Memorabilia. Where's the C tier? Right here. I think it's worse than Memorabilia, but where should I put it? Worse than Borrowing Problems from the Future. Worse than this. Worse than that. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the C tier. I don't think it's worse. I don't think it's bad enough to go in the D tier, but I think it's worse than any of these other C tier episodes. So, yeah. Overall, just a boring episode, and Goldface isn't a good villain. So, yeah. Next is Season 4, Episode 14, or excuse me, Season 5, Episode 14. This is Cause and Excess. This episode was a lot better than I remembered. This is a Groundhog's Day episode with Nora, time loop episode. Really good episode. I don't know, I just really like Cicada kind of killing all these different members of Team Flash, and Nora having to stop him. I don't know, it's just a good episode for Nora, not being able to get Barry's help. And I like Groundhog Day episodes, so there's not really much I can say other than good episode. I'm going to put it above, better than this, better than this, better than this. I would put it above I Know Who You Are, which is kind of a boring episode. And I'm going to put below Invasion, so yeah. Really fun time loop episode, so there we go. I don't know, I just really like it. A lot better than I remembered. Season 5, Episode 15 is King Shark vs. Gorilla Grodd. I mean, it's a giant shark versus a giant gorilla. What can I say? This episode's really great. A lot of fun. That's really all I can say. I mean, King Shark is good in this episode. It's cool seeing him as a kind of anti-hero almost. And Grodd is at his most evil, trying to control the entire city. And the fight between the two of them is great. But other than that, what drags this episode down from being like an A tier is Cisco and Caitlin just getting on Barry's case about forcing the cure on King Shark. That's such a dumb storyline. The drama is so forced. I mean, King Shark was about to eat Cisco. What was Barry supposed to do? Stand there and let him? It was dumb. So I'm going to put this episode in the B tier. It's really fun, but that really, really drags it down. Where should I put this? I'm trying to think. Pretty high B tier. Better than Flash 2 Worlds. Better than Shade. Not better than Lose Yourself. that episode is really fun. This episode, again, really fun. It's a big shark versus a big gorilla, but other than that, the drama drags it down, and yeah, not much I can say. Season 5, episode 16, Failure is an Orphan. This is the episode where Barry tries to convince Cicada to take the cure, and he eventually does. And again, Chris Klein does a good job as Orland Dwyer. He doesn't do a good job of Cicada, but yeah. And then we have Grace Gibbons' Cicada showing up. This is the time when we shift villains. I don't know, the ending scene with Grace Gibbons attacking Star Labs is good, but other than that, this episode's pretty uneventful and pretty boring. So I'm gonna put this in the B tier. That final scene is good, but not good enough to put it any higher than the B tier. Pretty high B tier, to be honest. I do like this episode. It's better than Cause and Excess. It's better than... Is it better than We Are the Flash? No, I'm going to put it below We Are the Flash. I did like We Are the Flash a lot more than I remembered. It had the Return of Ralph. It had the mind stuff with DeVoe, which was fun. We Are the Flash is a good finale. Better than I remembered, but yeah. Overall, just Failure as an Orphan. Other than that, ending scene is kind of boring. Season 5, episode 17. Speaking of an episode that is better than I remember, this episode is great. The whole Vicky Bowen storyline is fine. With, her being the meta that killed Grace's parents and Cicada going after her. It's just, I don't know, it's cool seeing the new Cicada going after metas, and it's cool seeing Orland Dwyer as a good guy again. I don't know, I like it. The main thing that really boosts this episode up to the A tier, in my opinion, is the ending scene where Team Flash learns that Nora is working with Thawne. That scene is so good. And that just boosts it above... No, I'm going to put it below Grodd Lives. Just right at the bottom of the A tier. That ending scene is just so good, though. I love it. Just such great acting from everyone involved. Nora, Sherlock, Barry... Great acting. Season 5, episode 18, Godspeed. This is a future episode involving Nora. We learn her backstory, how she learned she was a speedster and all that. And of course we have the introduction of Godspeed, he's not a great villain, but it is really fun seeing him. The main thing that makes this episode so entertaining, in my opinion, is of course Tom Cavanaugh. Nora going to Thawne, learning about how to be a speedster, all that was just so fun. So I'm going to give this episode an A tier. I think it's a pretty good episode, definitely one of the best of the season. So I'm going to put this episode... I'm going to put this episode above Darkness and the Light, but below The Flash Reborn. I just think this episode is pretty fun. I do really like Godspeed. Just introducing the character is just, yeah, it's really fun. So, next we have, we have Snowpack, Season 5, Episode 19. This episode is the weaker of the two Icicle episodes, in my opinion. I just think that it is, I don't know, I just think it's very boring, I guess you could say. Again, the Caitlyn and Icicle stuff is just not as good as it could be, and this episode is less interesting because there's not the whole, is this my father or is it not aspect. So it's missing that aspect to it, which, kind of boosted episode 5, or episode 6. So without that, I am going to give this episode, I'm going to give it a C tier, maybe? Yeah, I'm going to give it a C tier. I don't think it's a D tier episode. I'm going to give it a C tier. Pretty high, actually. It's better than most of these episodes. Better than Memorabilia, at least it's not super cringy with the acting. Better than Cause and Effect. But I do prefer Izzy Bowen over Icicle, though. So, there you go. And Cicada 2 is not very good in this episode anyways. Season 5, episode 20, titled Gone Rogue, excuse me. This is Evil Nora. This episode kind of sucks. I do not really like this episode. Um, Nora being very edgy and working with the young rogues is dumb. The only, I guess, saving grace of this episode is Ragdoll. He's cool. I do really like Ragdoll, like I said. But other than that, this episode's just straight D tier. I'm going to put it below Magenta. I think Magenta, obviously it's got the edgy Magenta stuff going on, but I don't know. Nora being evil in this episode is just so, it's so forced. And the young rogues are really cringy. 2 episodes left. We have Season 5, Episode 21. This one is called The Girl with the Red Lightning. This episode is much like the other episodes of this season. It's very cookie cutter. It's just, trying to stop Cicada. Cicada flies away. I will say the end stuff with the dagger, them trying to fight Cicada in CCPD and trying to destroy the dagger with the mirror gun, that was a really entertaining sequence. So that episode, or that part of the episode, is enough to give it some bonus points. I'm going to put it in the C tier. Better than these ones. Better than True Colors? No. I think these episodes are actually very similar in that most of the episode is very boring and kind of cringy. But I do think True Colors with DeVoe showing up at the end, that scene in Iron Heights is better than this scene in CCPD. So that'll give True Colors the edge. But anyways, Season 5, Episode 22. This is our finale, titled Legacy. This episode, the first half is not great, with them kind of tying up the Cicada plotline. Again, Grace Gibbons is not a good villain, and yeah. But once they get rid of the dagger and Cicada is defeated, we move on to Reverse Flash. And this part is so awesome. With the dagger, ceasing to exist, Reverse Flash is free, and there's that whole fight scene in the future where he's freed from Iron Heights, he kills the guards, and then back in time, Nora comes and reverses time, and then Nora and Barry show up, and there's a big fight scene between Team Flash and Reverse Flash, and then of course it ends with Nora getting erased from existence. And the episode kind of ends with them just wrapping up Season 5. Singh becomes Chief of Police, Joe becomes Captain, and there's Season 6 teases with Cisco getting rid of his powers, which is really dumb. Ralph getting the Dearborn case, which is good setup for Season 6. Sucks it didn't go anywhere with Ralph getting kicked off the show, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, overall, after Cicadas through, the Reverse Flash stuff in this episode is just so good, and the setup for Season 6 is pretty good. So I'm going to give this episode an A tier. I think the Reverse Flash stuff is good enough to warrant an A tier. I'm going to put it kind of mid A tier. I think it's better than the Speed Force episode, better than Therefore I Am, better than Who is Harrison Wells, and better than Abracadabra. I think this episode just has that finale feeling, which it just really, boosts it past a few episodes there. But yeah, if it wasn't for the Cicada stuff, this episode could honestly make it to the top of the A tier, maybe even the S tier. I'm not sure, since I don't live in the world where there is no Cicada stuff in this episode. But overall, really good episode, really good finale. And yeah, that's Season 5. So like I said, not a great season, but I am really looking forward to Season 6. I know a lot of people don't like that season, but I really do. So I'm looking forward to jumping into that season. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for my future installments of this series, Seasons 6, 7, and 8. We only got 3 left, so yeah. See ya.